This video is not intended for children.
Hello everyone. Our topic this week was requested by Pro Neo. We'll be going over the basic storyline from Path of Exile. Spoilers for the plot to Path of Exile.
So, Path of Exile takes place primarily on and around the continent of Wraeclast. It is a world of gods, magic, nightmares, and corruption. Long before the events of the game, the world had many gods that ran around doing whatever they pleased, according to whatever set of ideals they believed and embodied. Indeed, even mortals could ascend to godhood under the right circumstances, and many did. The most important gods for our purposes being Innocence, Sin, and Kitava. Innocence is a god of justice, arrogance, and fire. Sin is a god of cunning, ash, and shadow. And Kitava is a god of all-consuming hunger. As time passed, Sin eventually came to the opinion that the gods were a problem for the mortals. Whether through a corruption of their original beings, or as a result of their original nature, Kitava eating everything, for example, the gods were crushing mankind or forcing them into following their ways. Basically, mankind lacked freedom and a true future. Believing in the races of humanity and wanting to see them flourish, Sin created a creature whose real name was lost to time, but would eventually become known as the Beast.
The Beast had a singular purpose, to sap the strength of the gods, lulling them into eternal slumber so that mankind could be allowed to pursue life in any of the 1,000 ways they so chose without deific interference. Unfortunately, there were two side effects to the Beast's design that Sin did not properly foresee, and considering that he, like the other gods, was put to sleep thanks to the nature of the Beast, there were flaws he could do nothing to resolve. The first side effect might have been intentional, but it led to unforeseen consequences. As a result of the Beast's simple existence on the continent of Wraeclast, virtue gems began to coalesce into being. Virtue gems allowed for a powerful and specific kind of magic that would come to be known as Thaumaturgy. By implanting gems either into your body or your equipment, you could access new and tremendous powers. Putting the gems directly into the body also seems to have negative effects on the human psyche long term. Socketing them into items, which players will do a lot, has no such drawbacks, but instead draws less power from the individual gems. As a side note, the Exile-verse seems to have non-virtue gem-related magic as well, as many creatures and characters, the players included, can access magical power without ever using virtue gems. The second side effect sort of stemmed from this first one. Humans, being the industrious, inquisitive, and power-hungry idiots that we are, eventually figured out where the virtue gems come from. The Beast. Now, the Beast was designed as a failsafe against the gods. It was not intended to become a new tyrant for humanity in their place. So, Sin designed the Beast without any sort of will of its own. It just had a sort of vague sentience, enough intellect to be more than a vegetable, do what was necessary to preserve its own existence, etc. But as you can imagine, of a creature that both puts gods to sleep and sweats out magic crystals by existing, it was incredibly powerful. So, humanity hopped up on pride, normal magic, and thaumaturgy, found this creature with no will of its own, but full of unbelievable power, just waiting to be tapped.
Surprising no one, powerful magical cultures that learned of the Beast's existence usually got around to trying to enslave it for their own purposes if they were left to grow too big for their britches. These attempts resulted in the destruction of at least 2 entire societies, possibly more, as any such attempt was invasive and inevitably resulted in the Beast lashing out to defend itself, with cataclysmic results. Hence the name it eventually earned. Cut to a few centuries before the game begins, and a massive empire had grown to encompass much of Wraeclast, but had recently found itself embroiled in a civil war. The rebels won the war and, among other changes, outlawed the practice of thaumaturgy throughout the empire, believing that it had led to a number of the problems that eventually resulted in the civil war erupting in the first place. The brightest of the empire's thaumaturgists managed to avoid execution, however, through a clever ploy. He revealed to the newly crowned, formerly rebel, emperor the existence of the Beast and explained to him it was the source of all virtue gems and thus the source of thaumaturgy itself. Ergo, if he was granted his life, the thaumaturgist could craft a weapon capable of destroying the Beast. The Emperor spared his life, and, when the weapon was completed, they stormed the mountain where the Beast resided. Which is when it is revealed that, surprise, the thaumaturgist lied about the weapon. Instead of killing the Beast, it was designed to allow the thaumaturgist access to the Beast's inner core, and thus control of the Beast itself. The resulting battle for control led to another cataclysmic event, with most of Wraeclast being rendered a violent, inhospitable, undead-ridden hellhole in the aftermath. The only shred of the Empire that survived, mostly intact, was on an island off the coast known as Oriath.
Fast forward to the time of the games, and one of the worst and increasingly common sentences for criminal activity is exile to the mainland of Wraeclast, which has only gotten nastier and less hospitable since the most recent cataclysmic event. For various reasons, each referenced briefly at the start of the game, each of the character classes was banished from Oriath, left to wash up on the shores of Wraeclast to survive if they were able. Oriath was ruled by the Templars, a religious order following the god Innocence that believes the late Empire's policy of thaumaturgy being bad. Despite this, the High Templar, Dominus, leader of the Order and resultantly Oriath, had begun secretly studying thaumaturgy aided by Piety, a thaumaturgist he'd spared from the flame when she'd offered to help him gain more power by studying the old and forgotten ways of the Empire prior to its collapse. As before the Civil War, they'd been better at it than the current practitioners of thaumaturgy, partially due to modern-day thaumaturgists having to practice in secret, because, it's illegal. Using a portal device, the two scurried back and forth between Oriath and Wraeclast with armies of loyal minions, digging up relics to research and using the conveniently available exiles for experimentation as they relearned the best practices for thaumaturgy. Obligatory fuck.
As can be expected, this series of events causes Dominus's people and the player to cross paths, with the player slowly working from just trying to stay alive to uncovering the secret research that Dominus and Piety are conducting, as well as discovering along the way that Dominus essentially wants to use this research to ascend to godhood, and that the ancient thaumaturgist inside of the beast is still trying to control it and pull a world-ending event once more. Understandably, both in pursuit of vengeance against Dominus, who basically all of the exiles blame for being cast out in the first place, and to preserve their own lives, the player proceeds to systematically kill pretty much anyone and everything in their way, including Dominus and Piety, though Piety keeps coming back and even helps you in the end, before taking on the beast itself. Using the ancient thaumaturgist machine, which you dig up with the help of his ex, who's still alive thanks to magic gems, you bore a hole into the beast just as he once did, before trekking inside of it to defeat the ancient thaumaturgist, slaying the beast in the process. First impossible task for the player completed, several more to go.
Returning home to Oriath using Dominus's portal device, the player discovers that the island has become embroiled in an uprising, with the slaves having risen up in rebellion, led in part by adherents of Kitava, who've begun clearly hearing instruction from their god for the first time in their lives. It is during this process that the origins of the beast are revealed, along with the fact that, with the beast dead, the old gods are all beginning to wake up. Path of Exile is divided into a series of acts, and during this act the player will slay an avatar of Innocence, which is the first step in Innocence figuring out how wrong he'd been about things. He and Sin don't exactly get along, big surprise. Befriend Sin, and face Kitava in single combat only to fail and be saved at the last second by Sin, which is when a lot of this information is dumped on us. Kitava is the god of hunger, and this is hunger taken to all of its extremes, not just food, but desires for anything and everything, and with an insatiable appetite. And Kitava has been starved for untold eons thanks to the slumber the beast forced him into. He's hungry. And all of these events combine to make him one of, if not the, most powerful god on the board right now. Given time, not only will he consume everything and everyone on Oriath, but his hunger will eventually consume the rest of Wraeclast as well, if left unchecked. The player was not strong enough to defeat Kitava, but Sin has a plan. Sin can't recreate the beast, but with the player's help and the collection of a few key things, they can use the spark he created the beast with in the first place in order to fashion something capable of slaying Kitava. The player then spends the rest of the base game tracking down the things they need and dealing with, usually slaying, many gods, or at least the avatars thereof along the way, before returning to Oriath and slaying Kitava once and for all, aided directly in combat by both Innocence and Sin, working together for probably the first time in history.
Afterward, the player is approached by a woman named Zana, who is investigating a mystery regarding the Atlas of Worlds, a magical device that you eventually discover allows you to access a sort of dream landscape. The Atlas is home to an ever-shifting world shaped by three things: your own dreams and desires, a being originally known only as the Shaper, and another being known only as the Elder. The Shaper is eventually revealed to be what's left of Zana's father, who she had been studying the Atlas in hopes of finding, having information that led her to believe that he'd been lost inside of its dreamscape.
Unfortunately, the Elder eats memories for sustenance, and the dream world of the Atlas warps the mind, slowly driving its inhabitants mad all on its own. So by the time they found the Shaper, Zana's father, there was little left of the man she once knew. Indeed, all that was left was a powerful mage with a surprising understanding of the Atlas and a deep, burning hatred for the Elder. The Elder, for its part, was a sort of boogeyman that feeds on memories and specifically creativity, so it preys primarily on children, abducting them from our world, trapping them in its dream world, and feeding off of the dreams and nightmares the poor children are forced to suffer eternally in the dreamscape as they are warped into horrific creatures over time.
While all of that is terrible on its own, the Elder is also believed to be a harbinger of sorts for some greater malevolent force, spreading something called decay throughout the dreamscape and eventually into our world as well. In order to stop the creature and remove its corrupting influence from Wraeclast, Zana and the player plumb the depths of the Atlas, mapping out regions and finding memory fragments until they are able to find and reassemble a weapon her father had created that would banish the Elder to a place between worlds, with Zana noting that she believes the Elder cannot be slain by any conventional means. We also learn that Zana herself appears affected by the memory insanity influencing nature of the Elder and the Atlas, as the player eventually learns that she'd done all of this before, bringing in another group of powerful exiles to help her search for her father, learning his identity, and even banishing the Elder once before. But she appears to have forgotten at least parts of that until we begin recovering memory fragments. Not only does this call into question how long the Elder will remain banished, but Zana actually locked the previous group of exiles inside of the Atlas, because they kept returning to its dream worlds again and again, mindlessly murdering and growing so powerful, she worried they'd threaten the world. So of course we kill them all, but not before their leader torches Oriath, forcing everyone to move to a different island, which is where the story ends as of now, though the developers have announced the upcoming release of Path of Exile 2.
And that's basically Path of Exile, a story of exile, rise to glory, and poking fun at a player's endless grind for loot. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like Pro Neo and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off.
Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.